Listen, no one has the guts to tell you the real truth about your credit score, so I will. Your credit score may not be enough for you anymore to borrow, and in this video, I will share exactly why. So if you are not living under a rock, then you should know that we are going to be transitioning into some severe times, and transfer of wealth will be the biggest event that will happen to our society. As consumers, we need to understand what those big headlines mean when you see things like inflation has increased by 0.75%. Recession could be far worse than 2008. Big banks could weather severe recession. It's literally turning into a complete shit show. Excuse my French. So what is happening with lenders? Well, many banks have came out and publicized that we are likely going to be entering into a recession. Now, some will arguably think that we are in a recession now and we are going into a depression. It's a lot going on. However, this is what really got me on the edge and started to look at things for what it was. And this is not a situation to take lightly. So I started to dig deeper and I found an article, and in New York, 3 credit unions have filed lawsuits, and they have filed a federal class action lawsuit to halt the enforcement or implementation of New York's recently passed SB 5724, a bill which would retroactively and prospectively lower the statutory annual interest rate on consumer debt judgments from 9% to 2%. Now, from hearing what I said, that consumer debt will reduce from 9% to 2% may seem like a good thing from a consumer side, right? When you first hear that your interest rates will decrease from 9% to 2%, but let's dig deeper. The credit unions that are suing in New York is arguing that some businesses may purchase loans, accounts, and judgments relying on the 9% per annum rate. The price of these purchases and interest will continue to accrue, and if that rate is lowered on a retroactive basis, these purchases unfairly lose a significant portion of their investment. Also, they, as the credit union, the creditor, the lender, do rely on the interest that accrue on judgment to offset the cost of recovering the debts and the cost of inflation when the judgment debts are not paid immediately. And if creditors are unable to rely on sufficient interest to offset the cost of recovering judgment debts, the lending industry will be forced to raise interest rates on loans and reduce the number of loans offered to higher risk borrowers. The result would be that credit will become less available to borrowers. So in other words, this will mean if you have just an okay credit score, you will likely not be one of their qualifying candidates to receive any capital from your local and national credit union. So let me put this in a perspective that you may understand. Me making videos on no credit checks, high limit credit cards for low credit scores with credit union and banks will probably likely be non-existent very soon. Banks have already tightened up their lending process, but now our credit unions are under attack, and many of us have been receiving great loan products to build businesses, earning income, and building generational wealth with these products and good interest rates from credit unions, which is having an okay credit score. Currently, this is not a national discussion at the moment because it's only happening in certain states, but it will eventually cross over to a national issue with credit unions and more banks. So what does that mean for you? You need to build your credit score now. If you plan to buy a home, buy a car, build a business, and get a credit card, this is what we need to do. So here is what I recommend. If you have a 680 credit score or lower, try doing some things right now. Number one, highlight any negative items on your credit score or anything that is hurting your credit score and start to correct them. Number two, don't overdo with too many credit cards in 1 year. Less than 3 is okay. Do not get confused or in the hype of me posting high limit credit card videos, high limit this, don't get in the wraps of this if you are starting out with your credit. You want to build a sustainable credit. Sometimes having too many credit cards can result into a high risk borrower. So this is why I'm giving you the straight up information, a real deal. Like, this is straight up. Don't go applying for too many credit cards if you are starting out repairing your credit and rebuilding your credit. Less than 3 credit cards is ideal in 1 year. Ask your parents and grandparents to become authorized users on their low or no utilization credit cards. It will definitely help boost your score. You can also ask for a credit increase every 3 to 6 months, depending on the lender. And this will also increase your credit score because it will decrease your DTI, your debt to income ratio, and it will increase your limit, which will increase your credit score. Number 4, do not take out any loans that simply does not make sense to your lifestyle. Okay? Do not take out car loans if you don't need a car. Don't take out mortgage loans if you don't need a house. Don't take out mortgage loans if you are just looking to buy a house to Airbnb it. If that's a high risk, you're going to be taking a high risk. Like, you want to, learn the industry first before taking out these type of loans, because you will have to pay them back. And when you do need a loan or a lender to lend you a hand, you don't want to burn that bridge. Okay. Now, this is a big one. Never co-sign for anyone. Ever. This will hinder your credit score when the person that you co-sign for becomes not responsible for the payment. I don't care what they tell you. They're going to tell you anything possible because they want you to co-sign. They want that car. They want that apartment. They want that house. They want whatever you're co-signing for. Anything sounds good when they're trying to get a co-sign. Don't believe the hype. Okay? This is a time where you have to think about yourself. You need to become responsible, and this goes for boyfriends, girlfriends, family members, and close friends. Now, if you're married and you have a spouse, that's a whole different thing. You're married. But this is not a game. Think for yourself. Okay? Pay your bills on time. Auto pay is your best friend. I don't care what nobody say. Auto pay will come in clutch. Okay? Ask your lender for interest rate reductions before lenders eliminate the interest rate reductions. Okay? So right now you can still ask your lender for interest rate reductions. They may have a requirement where you have to hold a credit card for a year to ask for interest rate reduction, but contact them, ask questions, and get to know a little bit about what they offer. Let them know what you're going through and ask them how can they help you. They can help you, but you want to get this interest rate reduction before they eliminate the whole entire interest rate reduction policy from lenders, because of this new thing where it's not going to make them any money if they have to reduce interest rates on products from 9% to 2%. Now, you may not think you will need help from a lender now, but when things start to hike up more, and they will, let's just say you finally decide to want to start a business and you want to start this business to upkeep with your bills. You're seeing that maybe the income that you're making right now is not going to, be good in the next year or two, and you want to start a business to add extra income to your household, and you do start earning extra income. And if your credit score is not close to excellent credit score, you may be turned away from lenders when you want to try to build up your business and you need that extra capital and funding. So lenders may turn away from you, and because they were willing to lend to you before the interest rates start to hike up for consumers, and lenders are now only going to be looking for consumers who have a reputable record of on-time payments, long credit history, and have no negative items on their credit report, and have a average credit score of a 750 and above. So that means having okay credit will not be enough anymore, and banks will start tightening up on their lending process as more laws become more favorable to consumer law and not favorable to financial institutions. Please note that credit repair can be done by yourself. I repair my credit by myself, but you can also get help from a reputable credit repair company in your local community. Let me know down in the comment section, what do you think about this situation? Okay, do you think the credit unions will start to crunch down on lending, and the process of getting a mortgage, loans, or a credit card will become even harder? Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and find a link in the description box and pin comments on this video to join a private group, Credit Cousins, to keep up with more credit tips and tricks just like this. See you guys in the next one. Bye.